Alright, just going to do a quick video on flushing out the clutch fluid. You can see down in the reservoir there, it's kind of black. There's other videos out there on YouTube that already show you how to do this. I'm not trying to repeat that, but I'm going to show you how to do it with one person, so you don't need to get a friend or a relative to pump the clutch for you in order to do this job. Okay, get yourself a pump like this, and you can stick the end of it down into the tube and get a little bit of the tip of this vacuum tube here to go into the reservoir line, and then you can start pumping it out and drain the reservoir and some of this tube. And that'll allow you to take off this clamp here, and once you remove that clamp, you can feed this line down further into towards the clutch master and drain that whole tube out of old fluid. Okay, once you drain a little bit out of this tube here, you can take out the two 10mm bolts here and undo this clamp, and then take the reservoir out of this tube, and then clean out the reservoir and get all that remaining junk out of there. Okay, so I was able to get about 80 milliliters out of the reservoir and that upper tube. So expect that, and you can see how junky and black it is. And next, put the reservoir back on, reattach that, obviously after you've cleaned it out. Make sure it's dry, don't leave it wet if you use water to clean it out. I just used a rag to get all the old clutch fluid out of there. Also, if you drop any fluid, if any drips get down on the paint in here, make sure you clean that out immediately. I had one drop that got down there, and immediately used some degreaser and soapy water to make sure I really got that clean. You don't want brake fluid on your paint, it will eat away at it. Okay, well, here's a weird thing. I just filled this with brand new fluid, and then I went down underneath the car to prepare to do the next part of the job. I came back up and checked this out, and it's all black again. And if you can see here, I'll shine the light on the back of it. A layer of old fluid has formed at the top. So the only thing I can think of is dot 4 has a slightly higher density than dot 3, and all the dot 4 filled up the hose and flushed out all that old dot 3, and now it's kind of skimming at the top. So I'm going to skim that off with my suction, and that kind of made my job a little bit easier, actually. Okay, so underneath the car, here's the slave cylinder and the drain hole. So what I've connected here is basically a tube and then a bottle that has some brake fluid in it. And so what happens here is, as I pump the clutch, this will fill up, this tube will fill up with clutch fluid, and since I have this tube going up, it'll evacuate the air and the old clutch fluid, but it won't allow, once this gets filled up with clutch fluid, it won't allow any air to get back in, so I can successfully bleed this clutch without needing to open and close this drain and have someone pump the clutch for me. Okay, so what I did here was I cracked open the bleed screw, and then went up to the top and pressed and released the clutch pedal 6 times. So this filled up with fluid. You can see the whole tube is now filled with fluid, and so now no air can get back in. So every time I press the clutch pedal, just the old clutch fluid is evacuating, and then it will help me bleed the system fully. So I'm going to go up and check the reservoir, and then make sure I don't need to make sure I keep it topped up. Okay, so after 6 presses of the clutch pedal, you can see that the reservoir is down to near the bottom, so I'll fill that back up and make sure that it doesn't go all the way down. Okay, in the vehicle when you're pressing the clutch pedal, you're gonna have to do it with your hand so you can release it, or you can bring it back, because there's no pressure on the system since the bleed screw is open. So just press it and release, press it, release, press it, release. Do it about 6 times and then refill the reservoir, and then keep doing that until you have evacuated the system. And I would say maybe 3 cycles of this should do it to get that lower clutch line all cleared of the old fluid. I've done about 3 or 4 top-ups of the, actually I think 4 top-ups of the reservoir. So I've cycled through that much fluid, and it's now nice and clear coming through this drain, and no bubbles, so there's no air getting back into the slave, so that's good. So now I'm going to just close up this slave bleed and then go and make sure that the reservoir is at the appropriate level and test out the feel of the clutch pedal. Okay, so I've filled the reservoir to the appropriate level, I've retightened the bleed screw, and I've checked out the clutch pedal feel, and everything seems to be working great. So good clutch pedal feel and no sponginess, so all the clutch fluid is now refreshed and new, and no more gunk in there. So hope that helps you do a 1-person clutch bleed, so you don't need to have a friend around or get someone else to help you out. See you in the next video.